Welcome back. There are continued concerns over the rise of cases of teachers having sexual relationships with learners. In the latest case, a Northwest teacher has been fired after being found guilty of engaging in sexual activities with a pupil. An explicit video and photos allegedly showing the teacher and the pupil made rounds at the school. For reactions on the story, I'm now joined by the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa's Executive Director, Mr. Basil Manuel. Mr. Manuel, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Quite disturbing to know that we still have educators that engage in such acts with pupils. What is NAPTOSA's reaction to this?
Good afternoon, Katlego, and thanks for having me. Katlego, I find it almost shocking, and there's a certain level of disbelief that people will still be doing this in such a brazen fashion, as though they believe that nothing could happen to them and that people would accept it. And that is what is so disturbing about this particular case and many others like it. We have crisscrossed the country, all organizations, the department, reminding people that this is just wrong. You are in a position of authority over these children. You are in a position of trust. The parents have placed the children in your care. And this is a clear abuse of that trust and your ethical role as a teacher. But it seems to be continuing. Now, Katlego, one has to call on parents, on fellow teachers, on the school authorities, and even the children to stand up and report these things, because somebody knows. And when videos are circulating, as opposed to making news out of the video, we need to be reporting this so that the abuse stops. And I worry that this had become such a juicy little story floating around before it was reported.
And that's very important, Mr. Manuel, because in this particular case, it was a teacher who saw that video going around that reported to the principal, and hence it was then escalated. It really does speak to the role that all stakeholders, not just teachers, children themselves and parents, that need to play in ensuring that such things don't go on.
Absolutely. And one must commend colleagues for standing up and saying, we don't want to be tainted by this. Because look what happens now, Katlego. This is an individual that taints teachers as a whole. People talk about what is happening with teachers, and there are very few of these people in our number, but they damage the entire profession. That is why we can't allow that to happen. But even parents know where your children are, because if you don't know where they are, how do you then stop something going wrong? So it is all of us that must stand together, work together to root out this rot.
So, Mr. Manuel, what in your view do you believe is the underlying factor for educators to embark on in such behaviors, and also for students, because this seemingly was a willing student who was in this relationship with the teacher?
To start with the student, these are still children. And of course, they can be plied with gifts and taken out to little restaurants, etc. And they think it's a wonderful life. But at the end of the day, they are still children. And there is a power relationship between an adult and a child. And this is where where taking advantage creeps in. It is the adult that must act correctly and correct the children. Even if they start showing unnecessary attention to the adult, they must be corrected. And if there was a magic factor involved where we could say that is what causes it, we would certainly be able to attend to it. But we are dealing with an array of people from an array of backgrounds, and people who don't always subscribe to the same ethics that we say the profession must subscribe to. And that is why they fall foul of the very, very things that they are not supposed to do. The bottom line is we have got to be on every case and ensure that the examples that are made show that this is not going to be tolerated. I'm very happy that there are so many parents today that are standing up. The days of hiding these things away are becoming fewer and fewer. The days of parents being bought off with damages, money, and all sorts of things like that are becoming fewer and fewer, and that is what we want to see. We've got to narrow the gap. where these people find their place in the sun. We must squeeze them out of the system.
Most certainly. You spoke earlier about, as an organization, you've crisscrossed across the country in educating and giving teachers awareness. What role do you believe ongoing professional development plays in preventing inappropriate behavior amongst educators?
You know, Katlego, we have so many workshops and shops and so many courses, and not only ourselves, even SACE, the South African Council of Educators, even the ELRC, the Education Labour Relations Council, we speak about the law. And we speak about what is permissible and what is not permissible, and that the law is not only about your rights, and the law is not only about labor matters. The law is about children as well, and the Constitution is about children and the rights of children. And where children are involved, we have to protect them. And we do this all the time, even with allied things. We are busy now with the Bella Act and with regulations where we talk about access to schooling. And we talk about the rights of the child and how we must ensure that we don't diminish those rights. And in that context, we are doing the same story over and over again. But if you are not sitting on the right track, that just goes over your head. And unfortunately, there are still people in the system like that.
So with this particular teacher, their name is going to be placed in the Department of Social Development's Child Protection Register. Do you believe that the consequences that many of these educators that they face are enough to deter other educators from behaving inappropriately?
I don't know if we will have enough deterrent ever, because people seem to find another life. But I want to say things are much better today than they were ever before. 5 years ago, the sexual offences register was just not working. We weren't seeing it. Even today, access is still not as easy as it should be. And we know that we are busy vetting teachers at the moment, but it's a long process. We are talking about 450,000 people, and the ability of the police to be able to do this while still doing the normal job. But we also know that there are people that constantly fall through the cracks and manage to get away with this. That is why awareness by children, awareness by teachers, awareness by management of a school, and of course the department itself and the community. That is our biggest weapon. And if they are following the precepts of the law, we squeeze these people out of the system.
Lastly, any message that you would have for teachers within this profession with regards to just their behavior and how they need to be upholding the teacher's profession?
I want to first congratulate the vast majority of teachers that will never tolerate this. And then say to them, let's continue to stand up. And let's continue to point out those that are doing wrong. Never tolerate one of them in your number, because they bring your name into disrepute.